Hi, my name is Andrew. I've always wanted to do comic books. I'm an artist, right? And I love Spider Man. Spider Man has been my dream to be involved in a project that has Spider Man and features him heavily. So I had this idea for a story, and it would be a one shot story where Spider Man is the main character, Peter Parker is the main character, and it would, because it just happened, because I wrote it in 2019, the idea was, Endgame had just came out, so why don't you compare two super geniuses? Why don't you treat Spider-Man, Peter Parker, as a super genius? And like, he's really smart, and you compare him to Iron Man. He's really smart too. And what are their differences, and how do you look at that? And so I'm not sure I'm ever going to create the comic. The idea was for me to make it as like, hey, here's me, like, to use it for a portfolio and say, hey, here's my script, and then here's how it went into thumbnails, and then sketches, and then the concept art phases, and then the inking and the coloring, and the final product with the bubbles and the words and everything else. I don't think I'm ever going to do that because it's a lot of work, and once I perfected the script, I kind of ran out of steam for everything else. I got as far as the thumbnails for the comic, and I got 2 pages in to sketches. So that's embarrassing. And I don't feel like I really have the time to continue it. If I ever do, that'll be posted, and it'll share it with everybody, but I haven't. So this is a fan work. Spider-Man and all those characters are owned by Marvel Comics. This is my fan fiction story, and I'm posting it on my website, and I'm posting this summary of it here on YouTube for freezies. Right? If you love Spider-Man, if you love these characters, you can enjoy this. I have no idea what to do with this other than, here's a finished script, here, enjoy. That, like, I have it, and I don't want it to stay locked up in my flash drives. So, the full download for it is on my website, andrew-navarro.com. So what I'll do here is I'm going to walk through the comic. I'm going to read through and sort of show you what it would have looked like. If you prefer to just read through it blind and sort of use your own imagination to fill in the blanks of what you think it would look like, that's the experience you want, you can go right ahead. The download link will be right below this video on my website. However, if that's not your thing, I've intercut a whole bunch of my own artwork into this video to give you the best picture as I have it in my own head. And if it isn't already obvious, I look different and will be looking different throughout the video because it wasn't all taken on one day. So the comic is called Itsy Bitsy, and the reason for that is that I wanted you to think of Spider-Man as somebody who is small in this world. In a big universe, he's a small little guy who's normally in the background, and he looks out for the little guys. But he's a super genius, and this is pitted against Iron Man, who is functionally the same character, but he's so self-centered, and he thinks that he's bigger than everybody, and he looks like that. And that is shown in the first panel. Stark Tower is clearly visible as morning dawns on Manhattan Island. Now, I had a couple of different iterations of this building as I've been working on it. Quite a few different concepts because I wanted to get it just right. Originally, I was going to go with a big old sci-fi thing, shiny, sticks out like a sore thumb, tallest building around, weird shaped, but didn't work for me because he's too early in his career. He's only on model 15, depending on how you count the Hulkbuster and the Golden One. But yeah, he's on model 15, and so his building needs to sort of blend in a little bit more. Still tall. So what illustrates his ego in this, and what will be useful later, is big old arc reactor in the building. So it's normal, it looks like a regular financial building, but his name is written both on the bottom and on 2 sides of it, and he's got a big old arc reactor sticking out of the building about midway through. And Peter's narrating at the same time that he's on the phone with his aunt. So narration box New York, best city ever. Well, except when it's not. Like when the city randomly decides, ooh, it's supervillain disaster time. Or just regular disasters. Or the little daily disasters. And so what's happening is, it's mostly in shadows. He's walking back to his apartment, which is right across from Stark Tower, but you don't see that in these initial panels. He's got some groceries, and he's like walking over, stuff, like, I don't know, maybe somebody's painting, or maybe somebody took down a door, maybe Daredevil just fought there. I don't know. He's talking on his phone with Aunt May, and there was a fire recently. And her church, her Catholic church that she goes to in Queens, has burned down. Peter, of course, then invites her to the local Catholic church right by his building. You see, this whole story takes place in this street crossing of First Avenue and East and 86th Street. So there's a Catholic church right there. St. Joseph's was right there. And Tony Stark's building is right across from his apartment, which is also, I don't know, a barber shop or something. But he struggles to open the door, and he goes, little daily disasters like that, right, is what the narration box is saying. And so he invites her over to lunch, because remember, it's early morning. And then you see Peter's face all closed up, and he's happy, talking to his Aunt May. And he, says some flattering words and then hangs up. Okay, now we come up on my favorite page in the whole comic, because the way I have set it up, it really perfectly shows you, in my opinion, how I've set up these characters. It sort of gives you the premise for what you're working with, because it mirrors. It's 6 panels, and on one side is all Peter, and on the other side is all Tony. So first panel is Peter walking in on his desk, and he drops down his jacket all neatly onto his chair, and it shows you that he works as a janitor, like his name tag, at Stark Tower. So he's not doing what he wants to do, and he's sort of low class, right? Sort of at the bottom of the totem pole right now in his small apartment. Meanwhile, next panel, Tony Stark comes in, he throws his expensive jacket on the floor, completely different clothes, right? This other guy's in a t-shirt and jeans, and he's in, working class attire, and this guy is in, business formal, and he's just tossing it about, and puts up his arm, and his Model 15 gauntlet, bam, appears right on his arm, just attaches. Tony Stark is being a lot more secretive. He's working alone, and not telling anybody about his secret identity. Tony Stark doesn't care. Secret identity is out there for the world to see. But I guess I'll show you that in the next 2 panels. Anyway, and he's so rich that he's got this robot, this Iron Legion robot, strolls in to serve him his alcohol. I assume he's been drinking all day. So panel 3, Peter's now working on his goggles. He's getting really in there, he's working with his hands on trying to fix his Spider-Man lenses. Tony Stark, next panel, is also working on his superhero suit, his new Model 16 armor, but he's not actually interacting with it. He brings it down on this, string of cords and whatever. It's opened from like this huge technological room, and everything is automated, so he's just typing in buttons and stuff for the computers to build it for him. And there's also a general in the room in that panel, and I have a sort of dialogue going. So Peter's thinking and Tony is speaking. So Peter's thinking, okay, let's make the most of this time that I got. He's crunched for time to do superheroing and working as a janitor and probably doing school, but that's not mentioned in this story. But, being a superhero. Whereas Tony Stark then turns around and says, yeah, welcome to Stark Industries, Mr. General. Like I said, or if I haven't said, I'm imagining this to be General Ross. Tony says, and other visitors, reporters, politicians, ambassadors? No, you're clearly all very American. Anyway, listen, I'm very busy. What's your business? And the general says, "Yeah, you called us to show us your new project." And Tony goes, "Oh, really? That works. Here it is. Latest edition. You're early. It's not done, but hey, you get to witness history in action." He's about to finish. How's that sound? Front row seats to me at work on my legacy. And I have written politician, but like I said, it's probably the general. Says, "Mr. Stark, we were told this is urgent." So, panel 5, Peter, you're seeing from his cracked cell phone that he's working alone. He's the only one in the room, and it's just him. He's just vibing, at his desk. And in the last panel, you see Tony Stark surrounded by all these people. You actually see them, and he's just sort of looking forward at his creation. And the politician says, "This just looks like another one of your Iron Man models. How does it help us?" And Tony goes, "Help you? This replaces you and me. Model 17 is a sentient AI capable of commanding the Iron Legion when I'm not available." The politician goes, "Are you insane? Don't you remember what happened with Hank Pym and Ultron and all that stuff? Don't you have any protocols to prevent in case something terrible goes wrong?" And Tony's like, "That's not necessary." We're now in the next page. "That's not necessary because, it's not even online yet." Page 3, the Sentinel armor comes online. And Tony Stark didn't put up any protections for this. He thought everything was going to be fine. And there was no reason to put up any protections. But this thing became civil-ware, and Tony suits up and starts fighting it, and it's like growing, right? It's my version of the sentient armor. Also, has the ability, it's like got nanotechnology in it. It has the ability to touch other technological things around him and make it part of himself, so he becomes this bigger, like, monstrous thing. So because what we need here is we need it to like blow up, right? To become this huge thing that breaks the whole building. So in page 4, Peter, meanwhile, as Tony Stark has just evacuated the facility, he's kicking people out using his, Iron Legion, which look more like wasps of some kind, and Peter Parker, his little experiment explodes, right? It's very tiny, but it bursts on him. And Karen, who is his AI, goes, "Anomaly detected," and sprays the area down. So he actually has put up defenses in case anything bad happens in his apartment with his inventions. And it's very scrappy and it's just very practical, right? It's not pretty, but it works. And Karen goes, "Experiment containment systems engaged," because Peter thought about this, because Peter has empathy, and he's humble, and he knows that his experiments aren't going to always go well, even though he is also capable of making these great sci-fi things. And so Karen sprays it down, and he goes, "Thanks, Karen. Yikes, so no new battery today." And then Karen goes, "I'm sorry." "Oh, no. It's my bad. I just hope the batteries I do have don't die, right? I'm sorry. I didn't get that." So do you get the bit here? Is that the AI he's talking to is not actually a smart AI that talks the way Jarvis would. Karen's AI. Karen is just sort of like a Siri type thing, that it's programmed responses and they're very limited. And he responds playfully like she's actually a person that he's talking to. Anyway, so Peter's room shakes, and he looks out the window, and the giant senti armor just sort of, that's kind of what I nicknamed it, senti armor, rages on top of Stark Tower. So he gets suited up in the next, sort of panel montage on page 5, and he jumps outside. And Thor playfully says, "Ah, it's Spider-Lad, come to join for another row with a great metal beast. I will try to leave some for you." And he goes, "Gee, thanks, Thor." Obviously feeling like Thor's talking down to him. Page 6, splash page. Spider-Man swings into action, and now this great, giant, sentient armor monstrosity is like, it's like the building almost becomes him, right? Because Tony Stark's building is like super sci-fi, and it's got an arc reactor in it and whatever, and so that only makes sense for the sentient armor to take over that. And so there's screams, and there are superheroes. The Avengers have arrived. It's crazy. And so page 7, you're seeing Tony inside his HUD, right? And so Tony basically has a conversation with his AI Jarvis about how to defeat the monster thing inside his HUD, and you get to see all of the holograms and stuff around him, which will be important, and you get to see from his point of view what it looks like inside his heads-up display. And their conversation is kind of meaningless, kind of amounts to punch it, and so he does. So Spidey lands on some structural beams to get a better view of this sentient armor. And Karen goes, "Data connection established." And he goes, "Okay, great. Hey, Karen, find some structural weaknesses," because he built a program to find those sorts of things. And you see Spidey's HUD, and it's so much more pathetic than Iron Man's. There's nothing fancy to it. It looks like he downloaded it off of some website. But it does find a few target spots on the armor. And Karen goes, "Loading, target found," right? Very boring dialogue. Like, it's just a basic AI. But the sentient armor, before Spidey can do anything, because the HUD took too long, swats Spider-Man away. And so he's flying downward. And there's this gag of him, feeling like he's gonna die and whatever. He's bracing for impact, but he actually did save his own life. He's actually really close to the ground. He's fine. So that's when the X-Men show up. Because think about it. The X-Men have always been the political force of the Marvel Universe. So when they come in, my version of them doesn't care about actual civilians in comparison. So when they hear all of these, political figures, the generals and the ambassadors or the newscasters or whoever is there, they're like, "Let's rescue those guys. Spider-Man, you go get everybody else." And then you get a moment I just had to do of Colossus throwing Wolverine at this thing. So Spidey gets all these people together, these scientists, these interns, and he tells them, "Okay, I know what to do with you. You go take these streets and whatever, and you'll be safe. If that's everybody, you'll be safe." And somebody says, "Oh, there's one more person up there. I saw this girl hiding up in one of the buildings, and I don't think she got out." And he goes, "Okay, I'll take care of it." So he uses his AI, he swings up there, and he crashes into the building. And there's just debris everywhere. The building is collapsing on itself. Because, the AI is upstairs, being a big monster and causing a lot of weight to come down where it shouldn't be, and he's already done a lot of damage to the building, so it's coming down. He tries to use his AI to save this girl, but it does break down. His battery runs out, and he can't get out of the building. He can't figure out what's a safe way out, and they're both trapped in the debris. And here comes my favorite section of the whole comic. Second favorite because of the dialogue. And it was the hardest for me to write. It was hard to make it not sound too preachy or whatever, and I still don't think I did a great job, but it's a job, and I finished it, and I'm really kind of proud of it. The idea is, he's trapped here with Riri Williams, and Riri Williams is also super genius. So now our super genius count in this story is 3. We got Tony, Peter Parker, Riri. If you haven't read the comic with Riri Williams, her Ironheart comic, that first volume, it was awesome. She had this final battle in Latveria. It was crazy. It was awesome. Such a good kid. In my version of this universe, though, she's not that great a kid yet. She's just really smart. And she's at this tower basically just because she can be. She became an intern because she passed everything, because she's the smartest. And Tony, of course, wants smart people around him, wants to enable that, and he wants to keep tabs on them, even though he probably doesn't even actually know her name or who she is or whatever. She's just around. He's probably even never seen her face. So she's here, and she tells Peter why she's there, and she's like, you know, I make just kind of because I can, and because I, you know, if I can make super like sci-fi stuff, why not? And he goes, well, that makes sense. And I know you don't know me, but can I offer some advice? And she goes, sure, go ahead. That's not good enough, he says. And she at first she gets really offended, like, wow, what a jerk. And he goes, no. I'm gonna read this. No, it's not like that. You don't understand. Listen. Your mind is just as much a superpower as spider strength. Now think about it. Peter Parker doesn't think of himself as a super genius, and that's part of his charm, is that he's just a good kid and he's so humble. He thinks of his powers as his physical powers. So he says, listen, your mind, you're a genius. Your mind is just as much a superpower as spider strength. And with great power comes great responsibility. Responsibility to use that power to help those who don't have the power to help themselves. A mentor of mine once told me, intelligence is not a privilege, it's a gift. And you use it for the good of mankind. And Ruby goes, that's a lot of talk coming from somebody who using his tech for the thrill ride of superhero life. And he goes, look at where we are. He looks around at the rubble. Look at, do you think that I do this for fun? I put myself in danger? Almost kill myself for people? Yeah, sometimes it is fun. But that's not why I do it. You've got to be doing it with people in mind. And the best place to start is with the people you already care about, like family and friends. At this point, my point is made, and so it's time to move on, and there's an impending threat that we can use here, because big monster bringing the building down. Actually, what has just happened is the monster has just been defeated, and it was like a big blast that you don't get to see, and that's why it's coming down. But it's coming down, and Spider-Man had put up webs and stuff to try to, you know, support this area that they're hiding in the debris, but it's coming down anyway. And he has to lift it in one of those moments that Spider-Man commonly has of trying to lift debris, and he has to find the strength within himself, that sort of thing. But this is the most, at least I've ever seen him lift. It is the equivalent of 26 feet of concrete, solid concrete, is what the equivalent is. And here's the thing with that, is this giant, you know, piece of debris, I measured out, because I measured out what it is that a spider proportionally can carry, and then in pixels, let's say concrete, in blocks of concrete compared to his size, how much could he carry? And so the amount that you will see him lift in the comic book is that amount. He is going to lift something proportional to a spider, and it's huge. It's hilariously big. But we'll get there. What motivates him to finally do it, because it is way too strong, it is more than he's ever put out. It will be his max limit in this universe, as strong as he can ever be. This is about his limit in this universe. So his eyes close, and he starts flashing back to a picture of his Uncle Ben playing baseball with him, and he's like 15. Him and MJ at the park, and then Aunt May, and he thinks he's gonna die, and then he realizes, no, I have lunch with Aunt May. I gotta get out of here now. She could be around. I invited her here, around in this area. Is she okay? Did she get caught up in all this mess? And he's terrified. I gotta get out of here. and I got to see if she's okay. And with that dominating his mind, he lifts this huge, chunk of debris. And it's an incredible feat. And Riri sees it. But nobody else does. He gets out, and when he rescues Riri, brings her back down, Iron Man is looking all pompous, having a chat with news anchors. The monster is defeated. That happened off panel. You didn't get to see him do that, because really the monster is not the point of the story. But now he's before the news saying, oh, we saved everybody, and here's what we're going to do next, and whatever. And who is there but the Daily Bugle? And so J.J. Jonah Jameson looks over and sees Spider-Man carrying this young girl down to be rescued, and his initial thought is, this pervert has arrived, and get her away from that girl. And so Spider-Man has to swing off. But he's like, doesn't matter. I don't actually care. And Riri sees that too. So later Peter is having lunch with his aunt when he's interrupted by Iron Man showing up. No one sees, but Peter sees, and he goes outside, and it's sort of, and I hope it comes across this way, but it's sort of, in an alleyway. Iron Man shows up, and then Tony comes out of the suit, and he's being kind of discreet. No one's seeing him do this. And he goes, hey, Peter, Riri, or he probably says her name wrong, like Ross or something, Rory, told me what you did, and that you were being a good guy, and you're a superhero like me and whatever, so I'll do you a favor, I'll do you a solid. What he's not saying is, I'm not going to do it in front of everybody, I'm not going to fix your reputation, because I don't want to be seen with the guy who was called a pervert, but I know that you're not a pervert, and I know that you were one of the heroes, so let me do you a favor. What do you want? You want some money? And he thinks, and I want his decision to be batteries for his lenses. He doesn't think big picture like that. He thinks saving his people. If you look at his costume, I went with a very classic design. I always like doing unique symbols for Spider-Man, so that's cool. But it's a very classic design. You can see the seams on it, and around the gloves and the shoes, you can see it's very practical, right? It looks like he's put, leather knuckle guards and pads and whatever, and he's got like traction on his shoes. It looks very practical. And he goes, I just want batteries, because he's thinking, I don't want, as much as I could use that stuff, the first thing that comes to my mind is helping other people, and the best thing I can do to help people right now is have my tech be reliable. And that's sort of the end of that conversation, and Peter Parker starts narrating again. And it's basically, the last page is a mirror of the first page. Everything's sort of flipped. So the city shot is at the end, with a big Spider-Man face in the sky, kind of like the Spectacular Spider-Man TV show, but also the early comics, and I think it happens just in general in comics a lot. But instead of Peter Parker going to his apartment, it's Riri, and she's calling her mom, just like Peter was calling Aunt May. She goes, hi Mom, yeah, I'm sorry for not calling, it's just been busy. They have me in temporary apartments for a few weeks, and the in-house intern dorms, burned when the energy core was crushed. Keep in mind, while she's talking to her mom on the phone like this, she's building what is her iron suit, and as she finishes up towards the end of the page, spraying a line where her symbol is going to go. No, I love what I'm doing. Yeah, I think it's going to do a lot of good. And Peter Parker, at the same time, is intercut with this, is saying, the little things, the little people, Itsy Bitsy. Nothing more important in this whole city. And after all the crazy chaos the city throws at you, there's nothing more beautiful. And so what you see that she's spray painting is she spray paints the heart, the iron heart symbol. She spray paints the heart because that is the point of Spider-Man comics at all. It's the heart of New York and the heart of Peter Parker, and how much he loves this city, how much he loves everyone that's in it. So, you know, at the center of her chest is not an arc reactor because she doesn't have access to that kind of technology. She just kind of spray paints it on. In my version of this story, right, it can't be the main universe. It has to be some kind of alternate, you know, self-contained story that alludes to there being a bigger universe. You know, the X-Men and Avengers are all doing this thing, but Peter Parker is small. You know, he sees the beauty in every person, and he's motivated by that. And when he sees somebody who is like himself, an Ironheart character, his thought is, he doesn't realize that Tony Stark is a jerk.
Because of course he doesn't, because he's too busy seeing the beauty in Tony Stark too.
But you, as the reader, are supposed to compare, you know, Tony Stark with his knowledge isn't being responsible. He created this monster, it got out of control, and he toasts to himself like he's a hero for having stopped his monster. And he thinks he's so great, whereas Peter Parker, he doesn't create those problems. He runs damage control, and he does it quietly and happily, and he does it for the people he loves, because he loves everybody. Riri Williams needs to learn that from him. And so she recognizes, you know, if you want to do good stuff, you have to be motivated by love. And so that's why the heart is on her chest in this universe, in my story. And I hope you liked my story. I'm never going to draw it. I'm never going to make the full comic. Or I will. Maybe. That would be so much fun. And I'd love to like put it out there and so people could see, this is my comic, behold. But for now, I have this video. Hope you guys enjoy. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to try to put out merch, monetize something in some way. When that comes out, my Instagram people will know. There will be links. Check out my website, andrew-navarro.com. Y'all have a great day. Y'all have a great night. Whatever time, whatever place you're at.